So I wanted to introduce myself and introduce our speaker today. My name is Jeff Tarrant. I'm the director of the NeuroMeditation Institute in Eugene, Oregon. And welcome. It's nice to see all of you. This is our first event of the new year. And so I'm excited to have everybody here and wanted to just give a brief introduction for those of you. I see a lot of familiar faces and familiar names, but those of you that aren't familiar with us, to give a really brief introduction of who we are. Who are these guys? Who are these neuromeditation guys? And then I really wanted to turn it over to our speaker today, Kat Kaiser, because really that's the focus of what we're doing, no pun intended. So if you're not familiar, the NeuroMeditation Institute is really focused on examining a brain-based approach to meditation. And we do that through research, but also through our classes and workshops. So if you've not checked out our website, I would encourage you to do that. There's a lot of free resources on there, as well as some upcoming events that you may be interested in. And one of the things that we are doing this year, 2025, is really expanding a lot of what we're offering. And this is the very first one. But if you take a look at our website, we have free webinars, I think every week this month. So we're doing a lot to try to reach out and kind of share some of what we have to offer with other folks. Beyond the webinars, we also are going to be offering many more courses and workshops than we have been in the past. And in fact, Kat will be teaching some of our specific meditation classes. So she'll be teaching a 6-week class on focus. Actually, she'll be teaching a 6-week class on every style that we teach: focus, mindfulness, quiet mind, and open heart. But we're starting with focus. And so it's appropriate that she is our speaker for today, and we'll be offering a little bit of a background of what we mean when we say focus meditation. So I'm not going to get into that because that's her talk. But let me introduce Kat briefly. She'll give you a little bit more information about herself. But I've known Kat for about 5 or 6 years. I was trying to figure that out in preparation for this. I think I first met Kat. She attended a sound bath that I did. I believe that was the very first time I met her. And anyway, we've become good friends and colleagues since then. And really, I invited her to do this and to teach these classes because I've always been impressed by Kat from the beginning. She's a level 2 instructor with us, but she just has a really deep knowledge of meditation, not just the neuroscience, but really the practical practice of meditation from a lot of different traditions. She's also a yogi. She teaches yoga as well and incorporates neuromeditation into all of that work. She has a lot of background and training with trauma-informed practices, with compassionate communication, which she infuses into her work. So anyway, I really admire Kat and the way that she teaches and applies this work. And I think maybe most importantly, she walks the walk, right? So there's a lot of teachers out there who are good at explaining things, but they don't necessarily do it themselves, right? Kat's not one of those people. She has a very intense practice, which I also really admire and appreciate. That's hard to do. And I'm sure all of you can relate to that. It's hard to keep up with your own practice. So without further ado, turning it over to Kat. Remember, if you have questions, type them in and we'll get to them. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you, Jeff, for that introduction. And I want to take a minute to just say thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I really appreciate you guys sharing your two most valuable resources with us, your time and your attention. And yeah, Jeff shared already a little bit about me, but I'd like to start by just telling you a little bit more about who I am and what I do, and my journey with neuromeditation, and a brief overview of what is offered through the approach of neuromeditation. And then we'll just hop right into some experiential practices. And hopefully we'll have time for all of them. If not, that's okay. And yeah, like he said, if you have any questions throughout, just go ahead and type them into the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to reserve about 5, maybe 10 minutes toward the end for questions and anything that you guys would like to talk about after the practices. Um, so yeah, that's a little overview of what we'll be doing today. Before we start, I'll just invite you all to join me in a couple deep breaths. Mm. We're still just fully arriving. And while we don't have a whole lot of time, I do want to present you guys with a little bit more about who I am and why I love this work and why I really highly value this material. So, like Jeff said, my name is Catalina. You can call me Kat. I am a student and a teacher of yoga and meditation for student for about 20 years, teacher for about 12. And I do work all over. I'm based here in Eugene, like NeuroMeditation Institute, but I do work in Mexico, in Nayarit, in California, in the Mount, excuse me, Mount Shasta area, doing retreats and workshops and classes. And I teach the staff at universities, Montessori schools. I work in jails and prisons with incarcerated populations. So when he mentioned that my work is infused with trauma-informed practices, that is very important to me because I also work with people in addictions recovery and relapse prevention. So as you can see, I plug my offerings and my practices in all different walks of life for people. And that's really why I love the approach of neuromeditation, because it was about 5, 6 years ago that I started with this work. I read the book and I started taking courses and classes and trainings and participated in some research studies with Dr. Tarrant, with Jeff, and realized not only was this really helping my personal meditation practice, but it was so helpful in offering people different styles, distinct and unique styles of meditation, so that they could work with something that actually made sense for their unique brain anatomy and activity, and also for their goals and intentions. Right. And so I just want to express some gratitude to Dr. Tara and the Neuromeditation Institute for organizing this material in the way that they have. And we'll get right into that, because I'm not sure if a lot of you have a whole lot of experience with neuromeditation or a background in what we do. So I'll just give you a kind of a brief overview, and hopefully that'll help to demonstrate why I so highly value this work. And really it comes down to the organization. So a lot of different scientific research studies have shown us that depending on the style, the type of meditation that a person is doing, different brain waves are activated. So that's alpha, theta, the gamma waves. So they're doing different things. And not only that, but it shows us that within different regions of the brain, there will be more activity. It'll start lighting up and activating. And so what does that mean? It means that these different distinct styles and approaches to meditation actually have totally unique effects, which is very wonderful to know, right? Because some people will start meditating and they'll be like, I can't do this. I don't like this. This doesn't work for me. And so what neuromeditation is suggesting is that that might not be true. Maybe it's not one size fits all, right? That there are different styles that a person might be able to try out. And also there might be a specific starting point. And we'll talk about that today. So the 4 different styles that are the main primary styles of meditation that Dr. Tarrant has organized for us throughout the body of work that is neuromeditation are focus, mindfulness, open heart, and quiet mind. Okay. And so if we can just start with the very basics of identifying these 4 different styles that create different brainwave pattern and activity and light up different regions, right? So just a very brief overview, because today, as you all know, we're here to talk about focus. So we will focus on that. But first, just to let you know, the reason why this is so helpful is the application, right? And so then if someone, whether it's you and you're doing this for yourself, or if someone comes to you and you're working more as a mental health practitioner, a teacher, or a guide for someone, the beauty of it is that depending on what their goal is and where they're at, we can customize, right? So we can actually personalize a meditation practice for the individual, which is why it makes it so useful, so helpful, so important that it's organized in this way. So For instance, focus, you can imagine just by the name, is really helpful for sustained attention, right? For concentration, which can be wonderful for people with either ADHD or people who just find their mind wandering a lot, people who are having issues with holding sustained attention or focus, or even if there's just a general cognitive decline while aging or after a brain injury, something like that, or someone who just wants to promote their memory, right? Cultivate a better memory. So all these types of things, when we talk about that, that's all up here in the front, right? That's our frontal lobe. So we're activating frontal lobes. Um, Now, the difference between a narrow focus meditation, which you'll really get a felt sense for when we move into the practice part of this, the portion where we actually do some meditations, the difference between a focus meditation, which seems very narrow because you're focusing on one thing, and then if you can imagine a mindfulness meditation, right? If anyone's practiced that, you might know that a mindfulness meditation is more like an open awareness, right? So an open, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment, as opposed to a very narrow focus on something, right? Um, and so, and they're both good for depression, anxiety, things like this, but mindfulness might be extra good for anxiety because it's helping us let go, right? And not be so narrowly focused on things. And to jump right into another one, open heart, where if some of you have ever practiced like an LKC or a loving kindness, compassion meditation, or even something along the lines of like a gratitude meditation, so you can see open heart is something that's really focusing more on positive feelings and emotions, positive feeling states, right? And that's going to activate a whole different part of our brain, a whole different part of our being, right? But we can scan, map, and measure what happens in the brain. So that's where the beauty of the science and the sacred and that fusion of them comes in, because we can actually map it, we can measure it, right? Which is beautiful because that gives us information that we can work with. So focus, very narrow focus, mindfulness, and open awareness, open heart, positive feelings, right? Gratitude, love, kindness. And then lastly, the quiet mind model, which I really like because, like I mentioned before, I work with survivor populations, survivors of trauma, and also a lot of people who experience chronic pain. And so quiet mind would be really good for people like that who just need more spaciousness, right? A felt sense of spaciousness in their lives, because a lot of the times those types of experiences, whether it's an addiction, for example, or chronic pain, makes the world very small for us, right? And we kind of end up having this felt experience of being kind of trapped in all that heaviness or weight. And so that quiet mind takes away a little bit of that heaviness by creating a little bit more spaciousness. And so we focus on nothingness or space or distance, things like that. Um, so all of those four different distinct styles are going to activate different brain waves and activate different regions. And in essence, they're going to offer us a different effect, right? And so depending on where someone is or their goals and intentions with the meditation practice, they can focus on one or two of these different styles to really actually help them, right? So for instance, we know that a depressed brain has like lower activity in the left frontal lobe. So we want to give them something that's going to promote activity there. Very simple, basic example, right? So hopefully you can see how that kind of already ties together with how we can apply these, how the application becomes individualization and customization, okay? So as far as that, and if you have any questions about that, that's really taking a whole body of work of neuromeditation and giving it to you in the smallest, tiniest little nutshell, like a little gem. So so if you have any questions about more details about that, you can type them into the chat. You can also head over to the website and check out materials and resources. Or if you want to go further into, for instance, one of the specific styles, that's what these upcoming 6-week classes are about, and they will be on the same format live on Zoom. So all that being said, we're going to dive into the focus of today, which is focus meditation, that first one that we talked about. And for the purposes of this webinar, because we have limited time, we're not going to get super in depth into the nerdy scientific aspects of it all, although that is really fascinating and wonderful. And if you want more of that, it would be a great idea to sign up and study more with us. But I will give you just a very basic overview. So hopefully I don't lose you in these next couple minutes. We're going to be focusing on just what happens in the brain during a focus style meditation. Okay. So when we are focusing, we know based on EEG, based on mapping and measuring of the brain in different meditative states, that sustained focus and attention happen right up here in the front, okay? In what's called our anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, to simplify it. So that is when we're concentrating on something. And then if you've ever tried to meditate or focus on something, you might know of this experience where all of a sudden you just totally lose touch with your point of focus. And we find ourselves with our mind wandering. And that happens toward the back, posterior cingulate cortex. Okay, so our PCC, ACC, PCC, focused attention, mind wandering. Now, what is going on back there? Well, it's called our DMN, and this is one of the last bits of terminology I'll feed you with today, and you do not have to memorize all these. But our default mode network is in the back there, and that is a spot that is fully concerned with self-reference. It's self-referential. Okay, so we default to I'm a human, I'm in a chair, I'm hungry, I'm tired, all of these things that have to do with me in relation to being human and being in time and space, right? So whatever refers me back to myself. And that will take us away from our point of wandering. Does that make sense? So I'm focusing here, focusing on my breath, focusing on an image, focusing on a candle, whatever it might be, and then I self-reference. And so I catch myself mind wandering, and my only job is to bring my focus back, is to bring my awareness back to my breath or my body. Okay, so I like the way that Dr. Tarrant had explained it to me when I was doing one of my original trainings with NMI, was that it's a dance along the cingulate. It's just a dance. And it's okay, because one of the big things that gets people away from meditation is this whole idea of I can't do it, I'm not good at it, right? Well, that's wonderful, because it's just a practice, right? You're not expected to be a pro right away. I've been practicing for 2 decades and I'm still practicing. I'll always be practicing, okay? And also remember, depending on how you slept, your level of stress that day, what you've eaten recently, all these types of things will factor into how long you're going to be able to hold sustained focus and attention on any given day. So think about it, not like I'm no good at this, but okay, dance upon the cingulate. Just bring it back to focus. Bring it right back to focus. So let's see, what else can I say besides focus is a wonderful place to start. If you have, for instance, been to the NMI website and you've taken like the quiz about what meditation style might be most beneficial for your particular brain, or if you're just wondering, which one of these styles would be best for my goals and for myself, I would say a wonderful place to start out of those 4 is with this exact style, is with the focus meditation style, because it helps kind of flex that muscle of sustained attention, if you will. And while there are different things going on in the brain in different meditation styles, it's really kind of a foundation, right? As we build up the scaffolding of our toolkit to be able to meditate with more ease and more success. It's a really wonderful place to build your foundation, is the ability to stay focused, right? And I mentioned a little bit before how wonderful it is for things like cognitive decline, for memory. Obviously, it's wonderful for focus and attention, but also these types of things are really helpful with depression and anxiety, right? Stress, because we start to take control a little bit, right? And anyone who, studies, whether it's Eastern philosophies or yogic philosophies or maybe even Stoic philosophy, might be familiar with that whole idea of focusing on the things that we can control, which is our breath, right? And our body. Most of the time we have control over those things. So a good way to reduce stress and anxiety in any moment is to shift our focus away from those external problems, focus on our breath, focus on our body. So if we can do that and we practice that skill, we'll have more success in it when we need it in real life applications, right? Like reducing our stress or emotional or nervous system regulation, right? I'm going to make sure I got everything I wanted to talk about here. Um, yeah, and so lastly, kind of along that same vein of thinking, is that our mind, when we are usually when we are experiencing something like stress or anxiety, right? It's because our mind is wandering. It's a time traveler. Our mind can go to the past and think about everything we've ever done, whether we liked it or not. And then it can travel to the future and it can think about everything that might go wrong in the future or what's going to happen or how am I going to react in the future, right? So we're in the past and the future in our heads. Well, what can we use that's available to us all the time to bring us back to the present moment, right? And that's focusing on our breath and our body, because those things only exist in the right here, right now, okay, in the present moment. So, I think we'll jump right into the practices. And and remember, your only job is finding your mind wandering and bringing it back to focusing on the breath. I'm going to lead you through, especially the first one. I'll be guiding you through the first minute or two. And then we're going to try out a few different styles and we're going to layer them. Now, there's a couple things that I always think are important to say before leading anyone in any style of meditation. And so I'm going to share those things with you before we begin. Number one is definitely that everything is optional. I value your autonomy. So if you would prefer not to practice any of these, that is totally okay. You are welcome to just witness, observe, take notes, whatever you'd like to do. Okay, so you do not need to participate if you would not prefer to. Secondly, I want everyone to know that it is 100% okay to have their eyes opened or closed during these meditations. In fact, I encourage you to try both ways just to see what works for you. There are, in fact, many meditation styles throughout time and space that actually call for using the eyes opened, some types of Zazen Buddhist meditations, things like this. And a lot of people just simply feel more comfortable with their eyes open. That's okay. That being said, this is an online practice on Zoom. So, and some of you are already doing it. Just please note that you're also fully welcome to turn off your camera at any time or walk away from the screen, find yourself laying down on the floor or on a sofa, wherever your most comfortable position is going to be, okay? Let's see. Also, if you start practicing and you decide that this isn't right for you or you're not feeling it in the moment, it's okay to just go ahead and check out, tune out. Another thing that I'd like to say is toward the end of the meditation, we'll do each practice for about 3 minutes. Toward the end, you'll hear this. Okay, hopefully you heard that bell. Some specific frequencies often don't show up on Zoom, so hopefully, could anyone give me an indicator that we heard that?
It didn't come through.
It didn't come through? Okay, let's see. I'll try one more. Can you hear this? No? Okay, great. Well, then I will use my voice to gently notify you that the time has been up. And so I'll use a 3 minute timer. Before we begin, and knowing that we only have so much time here, so if there's a short question or anything, or maybe if someone has typed a question into the chat, are there any questions before we begin our practices? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set up my timer. And so again, I'll invite you guys to find yourself in the most comfortable position possible. A lot of meditation teachers will tell you to sit up straight and close your eyes, right? I'm not that teacher. I'm going to invite you to be in whatever comfortable position that you can find with your spine maybe as upright as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. That's okay. The first one that we're going to do, like I said, I'm going to use my voice to guide you through the first couple of minutes, and then I'll let you do a minute just experiencing, focusing on your breath on your own. And then, like I said, I'll use my voice to guide you back, and we will shift into a new practice, and we're going to add to it each time. So this is kind of just our level one. Okay. So starting the timer. All right. Finding yourself in that comfortable position, relaxed and aware. And taking a moment, just releasing any extra tension from the body, from the face and jaw, forehead. And we'll start by tuning into the breathing, beginning to notice the breath, becoming aware of the path of air through the body. Noticing the details of the breath, feeling the wind on the nostrils and throat, sensing the temperature of the breath, noticing that it's a little cooler on the inhale and a little warmer on the exhale. Hearing the sound of your own breath. Maybe it sounds like ocean waves ebbing and flowing. Allowing it to move through you and feeling the rising and falling of the belly or shoulders. Just noticing any felt sensations associated with the breath in this moment. The lungs gently expanding and contracting as the diaphragm gently moves up and down. Just noticing the full path of the breath as you breathe in, breathe out. Inviting each exhale, noticing that natural pause, space between, and releasing the breath. Wanders, bring it back to the moment. All right, and gently inviting your awareness back. If your eyes are closed, maybe taking a moment, slowly fluttering them back open if you'd like. So that was 3 minutes. And sometimes when there's a voice guiding you through a focus meditation, it seems a little easier to stay focused. And for some people, that's not true at all. Some people want to immediately drown out the voice of the person guiding them. That's okay. So again, we're going to try another style to see if it works better for you or see if there's anything that you notice that's different about it. But that right there was just me guiding you through different ways to focus on the breath, right? The sound of it, the feeling of it, the temperature of it, the felt sensations in the body movements, right? And so all of those are different ways of focusing on the breath. And we're going to use those techniques that I just led you through that guided meditation with in the following ones as well. So those are tools for you. Whenever you find that mind wandering, go ahead and tune into the sound of the breath again, or the temperature, or the feeling of the wind on the nostrils or the throat, right? So those are ways that you can keep your focus as we move forward for the next ones as well. So probably I assume that at least a handful of you have heard of box breathing, or this tool of counting with our breath, right? Um, for some people, that works very, very well because it's every second something to constantly put our attention to. And for other people, they're like, I'm trying to meditate and empty my mind. I do not want to think about numbers, right? And we'll talk about two different approaches for that. But before we get into the next one, I want to just quickly drop a little sprinkle of science on this one because I do think that it's really wonderful. And again, goes into the whole idea of focusing on the things that we can control that have practical applications in our everyday life. And this one has to do with our heart rate, our nervous system, our blood pressure, right? And so one thing that we can map and measure with science is called RSA, respiratory sinus arrhythmia. You don't have to know that term. Just have to, I'm inviting you to be aware that the breathing rate can harmonize perfectly with the heart rate. And that's really what we want to find that harmony. On average, that will be 6 breaths per minute. So if we do that math, that means 60 seconds, 6 breaths a minute. We need a breath cycle to last 10 seconds, which would be about a 5-second in, 5-second out. Okay. For some people, breathing in and out for 5 seconds seems like an eternity of time. Okay. So I actually prefer to do 4 seconds in with a 1-second pause and 4 seconds out with a 1-second pause. Now, breathing in this way actually does drop your heart rate and decreases your blood pressure, and it regulates the nervous system just with the breath. Okay, so that's amazing and wonderful, and it gives us an extra reason to want to focus on how long we're breathing. So not only does it help our attention, but also it helps balance out and bring harmony to the body. So I will lead you through the first couple rounds of this, and then I'll let the rest of the 3 minutes play out in silence so that you could have a chance to count in your own mind. Again, some people, the voice guiding them along really works for them. For other people, not so much. So I'm going to give you guys both options here. And like I said, some people don't want to work with numbers. That's okay. I'm going to offer you words as well, which may or may not be helpful. And again, this might not be your favorite practice. I invite you to try it out with either the numbers or the words. So 1, 2, 3, 4-second inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4-second exhale. That could also be I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Mentally, right? I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, pause. Okay. So we'll go ahead and begin. I'm going to set the timer again. Like I said, I'm going to lead you through the first few rounds, and then I'll let you count on your own. Whether or not you'd like to do that with words or numbers will be up to you. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. So again, find yourself as comfortable as possible in this moment. And beginning with empty lungs. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause. In, 2, 3, 4. Pause. Out, 2, 3, 4. Pause. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Continue on your own. Gently inviting your awareness back together. Deep inhale and exhale. And just taking a little moment to notice how that felt for you. And notice if it felt easier to hold your focus. Notice if you found your mind wandering. Notice how it felt. I would like to do one more, but I'm not sure that we would still have time for questions. I'm going to go ahead and ask Jeff. We are ending at 10:45. Is that correct?
It was actually
Or 11?
technically scheduled for an hour, even though you and I talked about 45 minutes.
Okay,
So,
good.
so
Well, I would love to do just one more practice and then we can have ample time for questions or reflections, if people have things that have come up that they would like to discuss or any questions. So let's go ahead and just move right into one last one. Or we might have time for two more depending on how you guys are feeling. But just to give you guys, so we used our focus on all focusing ourselves on all the details of the breath, right? With that first practice, we did that for 3 minutes. Then we did 3 minutes of counting with the breath, right? And quite possibly some of you might have noticed that your brain, we're so smart, we're such multitaskers that some of us might have been counting and about a minute in, we're also with our grocery list or with what we're going to do later or with, right? We can do multiple things at once. So our brain is so tricky. It constantly is looking for the next more interesting thing to focus itself upon. So because of that, we're going to work with that. We're not going to resist it and fight against that. We'll go ahead and we'll give the brain what it wants. We'll give it more things to focus on, right? And so in this case, maybe I'll back up just so you can see me. So in this case, what we'll do is we'll use our bodies, we'll use our hands. So notice I'm just going to inhale as I open my palms away from one another and then exhale and bring them back toward one another. Okay? That simple. Inhale, exhale. Okay. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm not just doing the movement. The practice hasn't just shifted and now it's only a movement. The practice is now focusing on the details of my breath, the sound, the temperature. I can use all those things. I can also count or use my words. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or with words, for those of you who that worked better for, I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out, right? Inviting air, releasing air. So whatever mantra you choose, or if counting worked for you, that's wonderful. Um, Now, this is to give our body something, a physical sensation or a movement, okay? For some people, they're not focusing unless they're walking. They're like, I don't meditate unless I'm walking because they need that movement. Or maybe if they're laying down while trying to meditate, they know they'll fall asleep. So it's just, again, customizing, right? Um, I wore my mala today just specifically to show you guys. Some people might already use this as a meditation tool, and some people might just think it's like some fashionable thing. It's actually a tool. So there are 108 beads, and then there's the counter bead. And so if I'm going to say a mantra, Om or Om Mani Padme Hum, or I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, and I want to do that a set number of times, then I just move down the mala, right? 108 times. Another thing people like to do is sound. Again, I'm not sure if this microphone's going to pick up because I don't have the music setting on. But 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds inhale, right? So some people, the music is going to work for them a lot more than the counting or the words. So I'm giving you all these tools as like a sampler platter, and you get to choose what works best for you. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into this practice. Um, Now, some people, I'll back up again so you can see. Some people, like in my practice, I don't actually let the hands touch. I'll just go out and then in until I can feel a little heat between my hands and go back out. So whatever works for you, you can fully touch them or not. We'll go ahead and start. We'll do this for 3 minutes. Now, again, because I won't be guiding you this time at all, this 3 minutes might seem a little bit longer, or because you have something to do and focus on, it might seem a little shorter. Um, and I invite you, if you haven't yet, to try this one with your eyes opened, watching your hands and imagining your lungs expanding as you inhale and exhale so that you're getting a visual of what you're doing, and that helps keep you cognitively and experientially, sensorially in the moment. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and begin, finding yourself in the most comfortable position possible and guiding ourselves with our breath and our hands for 3 minutes. Gently inviting your attention back to the moment, back to the breath, back to the body. Taking a moment to feel the ground beneath your feet or the chair beneath you. Ah, all right. So that may or may not have been a little bit different of an experience for some of you. Um, and these three practices that we've just done have hopefully successfully demonstrated to you that there are different tools that we can plug in to different practices to really give, I like to call these things training wheels, right? To give our practice some training wheels and help us stay focused. Some things are going to work really well for some and not so much for others. And that's exactly the point of sharing these types of tools and techniques so that you can pick and choose and customize what works for you. And also, I find it really helpful to have a general understanding of the science behind it because for me at least, it helps me just grasp what's happening and also it inspires me and motivates me, right, to continue and to move forward and to know that when I do practice these techniques, then I find myself having more successful meditations. I can drop in easier, I can stay there longer, I can find larger spaces in between without losing focus, without distractibility. So, I would like to do more practices with you guys involving, using our sound um, and mudras and mantras and all these other wonderful tools that we have. But today, for the purposes of time and for this webinar, we kept it relatively basic. Again, if you'd like to know more or you want to go further, especially with the focus one, that's the first upcoming 6-week class series that we have, and it starts on January 15th. It'll be Wednesdays at 10 from 10 to noon, and you'll get to spend that time with me for 6 weeks if you so desire. So I would love to hear about, excuse me, hear about your guys' reflections or experiences, anything that you noticed throughout those three different meditation practices. Um, or any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you'd like to share, I will invite you to unmute your mics and or Jeff actually will start if there's any questions in the chat, would you be willing to share them with us so we could have a little open discussion for these last 10 minutes together?
Yeah, thanks, Kat. There aren't any questions so far in the chat, but there have been a few comments that at least a few people preferred the words rather
Mm,
than numbers in terms of the practice. And yeah, I think it's a great idea that if people are okay with unmuting, they could just kind of jump in
yeah.
and share any reflections or comments or questions.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to say, that was really nice. Thank you. I really appreciate the options. And I've definitely gone through phases of trying different kinds of meditation, and some of it just really does not work for me. And there weren't always options available. And I identify as neurodivergent, and I think a lot of wonderful people do. And it's such a great idea to just let people have options. And normalize that, like, variety matters. So this was really lovely, and I appreciated your tone and your process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that really, I appreciate hearing that reflection because that's really at the heart of what I do is making these types of practices that I believe are so helpful more accessible, more available to people who, are either neurospicy or who've been through trauma or who have had, lifetime experiences that are creating blockages or obstacles for them in their meditation practice for whatever reason. And so thank you for sharing that because my full and wholehearted intention with the offerings that I share is to make them feel a little bit more safe and a little bit more comfortable. And that definitely it's the essence of that is letting people know how many options that they really do have. So thank you.
Hi, Kat. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I just wanted to ask, when you started, I mean, I know you go way back, but like, when you started building the neuromeditation into your existing practices, um, did you do like, did you, what was your level of restructuring? And well, I guess I'll rephrase like, how did you organize? How did you kind of reorganize? I know it's kind of a little question, but how did you reorganize your service offerings based on this framework? In a nutshell, I know that's a big question, but like,
No, that is.
you
That's a
know,
great question. It's a great big
yeah,
question. I love it.
yeah.
Thank you. So it was really easy for me, honestly. It was practically seamless because, like I mentioned before, my work plugs into different arenas in our community. Like I'm working in the university, and then I'll be in the jail working with incarcerated people, and then I'll be working with an addict on all the same day, and then someone will come into my studio with chronic pain, right? And so for me, it's like it worked so seamlessly because I could know, okay, my chronic pain client loves the quiet mind meditation, instantly loved it. And so do my folks who are really working with relapse prevention because it created that spaciousness. So immediately when I would, because as far as my personal practice in my studio went is, yoga and movement and body awareness, and then it would be the last half an hour of meditation. And so I started offering specific styles of neuro meditation just based on what they were there, what I had heard from my client, or from my friend and family too, right? About their goals and about what they wanted. And so then it's like, okay, wow, this is so easy. It took the guesswork out for me because people would tell me they have chronic pain or they're working with addiction recovery, and I would know directly, create some spaciousness for them, right? Use the quiet mind technique. Use something that's going to allow them to focus. Just as a very basic example, I have a one client who's had 19 spinal surgeries,
Um,
and so she experiences pain. So I'll ask her to focus on the space between her ear and her shoulder, or the distance between her index finger and her thumb. I'll ask her to focus on space around her body, right? So that it takes her focus off of the body that is in pain. So that's just a very, very small, tiny little example of how the work, once I began studying it, and when I study something, I just absorbed all this material because I was like, this is really, really highly valuable and very useful and beneficial. So I chewed through all the material and then very easily could plug it into, okay, well, if I'm working in the jail or the prison system, like, all of my trauma informed training also goes back into, I feed the neuro meditation in there, and I would start with them just on focus, right? Because a lot of them, um, and houseless communities included, in populations who are just constantly in that fight or flight mode, haven't ever had the luxury of just sustained attention and, okay, let me focus on this, that, or the other. So just working with the breath with them, very helpful. People who don't, know where they're going to sleep that night. And as far as the houseless communities, I was very seamlessly able to plug in things that would be really easy for them. Now, and if you do go further with neuromeditation studies, this will come up as well, as people will come to you maybe with, or maybe it's, someone that or yourself suffering, experiencing something like grief or loss or mourning or depression. And it's, like we want to be able to get them into that positive states and, those open heart meditations, but maybe they're not ready for it yet. It's a big jump. And so we start with that focus and just build up the foundation. Generally, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to start someone with a focus meditation and work them then, once they have that sustained attention practice, toward the quiet mind, the open heart, or more mindfulness, if that's what they're telling me that they need. So I realized that that was a big loaded question.
oh
Hopefully it
yeah.
gave you some sprinkled in some
No, thank
answers.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kat, I've got a few questions over here in the comment box. So one person asked if we could share the link to your upcoming classes. I dropped that in the comment box for those that are interested. Kevin had a comment. He said, you may have covered this already, but when I'm in a focus meditation, should I stick to breathing in 4 seconds with the words I'm breathing in, Or could it also be helpful to breathe in for 5 seconds and add another word on the end, such as air, making the new sentence, I'm breathing in air, 5 seconds?
Oh yeah, or you can, take away the contract. You can be I am breathing in, or it can be I'm breathing in love. It can be I'm breathing in, absolutely the answer is yes, customizable for sure. In fact, some people, when we talked about the RSA and the 6 breaths per minute on average, helping us be in harmony with our heart rate and our breath cycle, that's an average. So note that some people who just anatomically have bigger lungs or whatnot, they might want a 7-second breathing cycle or an 8-second, right? That would be extending it longer to more like 12 or 13, right? For the full in and out. So the answer is yes, customize however long. I mean, you can work your way up too to even longer, slower breaths, which will slow down. We do different things to the brain depending on our breath rate, right? So the answer is yes, absolutely. Customize it using whatever length you'd like and whatever words you'd like. You can use I'm breathing in air, I am breathing in happiness, I'm breathing in joy, I'm breathing in gratitude. Or you can use different languages. You could use a Sanskrit or a Spanish mantra, a medicine song. You can make it totally about, my body is healing, right? I release love into the world, like whatever you would like to do. Thank you for asking. Wonderful question. Yes, customize as much as you'd like.
I know we're at the top of the hour, but Ben had kind of a tag on question. What advice do you have for people struggling to stretch the breath for even 4 seconds? Inhale, exhale at the beginning.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for bringing that up, because for some people already 4 seconds is like, how do they get there? A couple things, and they come from pranayamic and yoga type of background. But first of all, are you breathing in through your nostrils? Because if you're breathing in through your mouth, that's a lot more challenging to extend and lengthen the inhale or the exhale. So first thing I would say is breathe through the nostrils. Second thing is work on contracting the area, like bringing the back of the tongue up to gently restrict the throat, the airway into the throat. And you'll notice when you do that, so I'm breathing through the nostrils and my sinus cavity is gently restricted by like bringing the back of my tongue and closing the back of the throat, right? So you almost get into a snoring state. I guarantee, well, I can't guarantee anything, but I predict that you will be able to extend that breath a little bit more there. And if it's still challenging, go with 3 seconds in, 2-second pause, 3 seconds out, 2-second pause. Okay, that's okay. As you practice, my guess is that it will start to feel more natural to extend it, especially nostril breathing, constricting the throat.
So I know we're at the top of the hour, and I'll try real quick to just address a couple of real quick questions that came in. One person said they'd like to learn more about the neural patterns with the different types of meditation, and then kind of a semi-connected question: why are we referring to these examples of focus meditation as neuromeditations? So I don't know if you can combine those into a real quick response.
Yeah, I will. Okay. So a real quick response for that would be, why are we calling it neuromeditation? Because of this framework that neuromeditation, that the NMI, the Neuromeditation Institute offers us. It's organization, it's framework. So the way that Dr. Tarrant has presented these distinct styles is exactly determined, or not determined, but it's associated with a specific brain wave and region. Okay, so whether it's going to be alpha if we're in our quiet mind, or gamma if we're in our open heart, loving kindness, right? Or that frontal midline theta if we're in our open awareness. Okay, so if you would like to learn more, I urge you to sign up for classes or look into the materials. There are lots of resources on the website to learn about all of the scientific details. And so the reason that we're calling this focus meditation a neuromeditation, like for instance, there are compassion, there's transcendental, there's TM, there's transcendental meditation, there's the LKC, loving kindness, compassion, like all of these things would be associated with a specific neuromeditation style, right? So it's not like we're inventing a new style. We're plugging in all of these options into an organized framework of 4 distinct styles based on what they do for the brain. That way we can apply them. So if someone has ADHD, PTSD, depression, anxiety, chronic stress, all these things, we can say, okay, what does their brain do? What does this meditation style do? How can we kind of prescribe and offer them a therapy that's customized for them? Hopefully that kind of answers that.
Yeah, thanks for trying to squeeze that in right at the end. And I know we're a little bit past time, and I want to respect everybody's time, which I appreciate, including yours, Kat. And so if it's okay, I dropped in the chat box our email address at Neuromeditation, info@neuromeditationinstitute.com. And so if people have additional questions or anything that you need, feel free to send it there, and then we can forward it over to Kat. Or if it's a question for us, we can answer it. But if it's specifically for Kat, we can forward it over to her. Kat, any final words before we sign off here?
Oh, just thank you. Thank you all for being here and sharing this hour. It was, I enjoyed it very much, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well. Yeah, just very grateful for sharing your time and your attention with me.